It's absolutely amazing to me the level of clarity that came from finally sharing this deep dark secret that I'd been keeping inside for so long, and here it was helping me connect with somebody. It wasn't hurting me. There's a distinction. I wasn't hurt by the thing that I was most afraid of. I was empowered by it. I empowered someone else with it. Hey, what's up, guys? It's Colin here. Thank you for tuning in. This is Happiness You. I wanted to talk a little bit today about some content that I recently wrote for a LinkedIn article. I put it on LinkedIn, I put it on Medium, and it's essentially about vulnerability as a strength and how we kind of have it all backwards. We kind of have it all turned upside down, so to speak. So what I had basically talked about in this article was the fact that throughout high school and up until pretty recently in college, I have struggled with a serious addiction to pornography. And it's given me a lot of anxiety over the years. It's given me a lot of stress. And for a long time, I think it always felt like something that isolated me from someone. It made me question a lot of the things that I was doing every day. Like, am I good enough? Because that weakness, it's always lingering. It was always lingering in the back of my mind. And so for a long time, it was something I didn't want to confront. It was just something that I really wanted to acknowledge because it was almost like it was a different me, So part of me didn't want to acknowledge it. Part of me knew it was there, but eventually I had to get to a point where that side of me that wanted to acknowledge it was strong enough to kind of overtake that ego that just wants to protect itself from everything. And so, long story short, I had come to terms with it in a personal sense, but then I decided I would share it with a friend of mine because he was struggling with a long series of cycles between depression, anxiety, sometimes verging on suicidal. So I thought I would kind of share this story with him. I thought I would empathize with him, and I'm not going to share his name, obviously, because I want to keep that confidential. But suffice it to say, he was going through a really rough patch in his life, and I sat him down. I said, "Look, man, your story it resonates with me. It reminds me of something in my own life that has given me a lot of struggle, and that is the fact that throughout high school, and even still, I have struggled with pornography addiction." And I'll never forget the look on his face when I said this. It was just this look of shock. It was almost just like time stopped right there. And he's just looking at me for what felt like forever. Finally, he says, "You know what, Colin? Can I tell you something? I think I'm addicted to pornography too." And in that moment was such a transcendent, such a surreal moment, really, because it was almost like everything just came full circle. It just felt almost just like, wow, I almost expected this to happen. Part of you just feels like, wow, how could that have gone any other way but that? And that was just like the point where I was like, all right, you know what? This is not actually a problem. I've made this a problem in my head. All this time, here I am thinking, like, if someone finds out about it, what's going to happen? What are they going to think of me? And then I finally share it, and it's not a problem for me. The problem is bigger than me. And that was I think the most humbling thing about it all was just the fact that my problems are only my problems because I've decided to label them as my problems. And so it got me thinking, like, all about people's weaknesses and things that we perceive as sort of our kryptonite. What I learned really above all else was that we don't choose what we consider our weaknesses. We don't have any say over it. The fact that I found myself in this predicament, that I found myself in the midst of this addiction, wasn't really my fault in a sense. It was me making the best of the circumstance that I found myself in. And that circumstance could dive into it 1,000 different ways about, where things went wrong. But the fact remains that I have no control over it now because it happened. And so why would I spend my time trying to deny that, trying to hide from that? It really doesn't make sense. It brings too much pain. And so the second conclusion that I came to was vulnerability is the ultimate strength. It's backwards. Society has it wrong. And I don't say that in the sense that you're vulnerable to being attacked by a bear, or you're vulnerable to fall off of a cliff, or vulnerable to disease. There's a difference. What I'm talking about is vulnerability in an interpersonal context, vulnerability towards sharing the sides of you that you don't always exhibit. So it's really just about kind of getting in touch with that truest version of yourself. And the reason that is such a strength is because we try to rationalize things and say that we're all different and say that we're all special, we're all unique, but really we're all the same. There's no inherent difference between you and I. And even though our life circumstances may seem different, we've both experienced joy, we've both experienced pain, we've both gone through love and loss at some point. I would say the vast majority of us can attest to that. And so if that is the thing uniting us, our experiences, then my ability to be vulnerable and to fully express what I'm going through in terms of being a human is the best way for me to connect with someone else, because I'm saying, here I am, I'm human. This is it. This is what makes me human. And so the idea then is that if I share what makes me human, what makes me flawed, then you might feel comfortable doing the same. And in that space there where we are both being vulnerable, we draw closer together. It's the basis for forming lasting bonds in any area of your life, really. Your family knows you better than anybody. Your significant other probably knows you fairly well. And that's sort of what you get when you choose vulnerability. When you're vulnerable around the people that you love them more. You don't isolate each other. You don't ridicule each other. And so I think even though there is the potential when you are vulnerable beyond just where you're comfortable, there is a potential for people to maybe think less of you, but really you're weeding people out of your life that are probably making you miserable anyways. What I really hope you take away from this more than anything else is that it's okay for you to be vulnerable with someone else, because you'll be very, very surprised what that can bring you. And it does create some pretty incredible changes in your life when you choose to live life without filters and really just express that truest version of yourself. Get in touch with that truest version of yourself. So even though it might seem uncomfortable, it probably is giving you butterflies in your stomach thinking about sharing something like I shared. But I really do hope that me sharing that with you guys, sharing that struggle that I went through, will hopefully inspire someone else to maybe just kind of let go and stop resisting what's going on, the realness of your experience. So thank you guys again for listening. I'm going to have a couple new interviews coming out soon. Hopefully one of them is with my good friends who just recently opened up a line of CBD products. And I know a lot of people have reached out to me with interest about that. So I'm going to try to get that up very soon. And again, thank you guys so much for staying with me here through this kind of interim time. I'm trying to rebrand the show. I'm trying to put more podcasts out there, but also work on the overall kind of direction of the show. So thank you guys so much. Stay happy, stay healthy, and take care.